Hi, you're listening to the Ento podcast, and I'm your host, Ross. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you giving me your ears for this episode. So today's show is not one of the usual shows. They will start again in the new year. But this is more a bio show, where we'll look at some of the people who are leading the way in the Ento world. But before we start, just want to say a big hi to some of the latest followers. Really think I should have started this when I started the show back in 2017, but now the show's listened to in quite a few countries, and there's just too many people for me to start sort of going back over all the things. But if you leave me a comment for today's show at theentopodcast.co.uk, that could be giving you a shout out in one of the future shows. So hi, and thanks for tuning in to Karol B, Vash and Anaman Hassan. Thanks very much for liking the show. Okay, as I said earlier, today's show's going to be a bio show, and the subject for today is Wendy Lu McGill and RMMR, or Rocky Mountain Micro Ranch. So Wendy Lu's the founder, the CEO of Rocky Mountain Micro Ranch, and they're Colorado's first and only edible insect farm. Today, with business partner Karol, they raise crickets and mealworms in a modified shipping container. They're heated by solar power, and they're in Denver, Colorado. Prior to founding Rocky Mountain Micro Ranch, Wendy Lu worked for nearly 12 years with international aid agencies around the world in sectors as diverse as water and sanitation, human trafficking, and the rural infrastructure development. She's an executive board member of Little Herds, who are the world's only non-profit organisation advocating the use of insects as food and feed. Wendy Lu is also a founding member of the National North American Edible Insect Coalition, which is working with federal agencies to set regulations for insects as food and feed in the US and Canada. She holds an MA in International and Intercultural Communication from the University of Denver, a BA in International Affairs from the University of Colorado at Boulder, and last year when I spoke to Wendy, she was saying that she was still studying. She was doing a PhD at the Plant and Agribiosciences Centre, and that's at the National University of Ireland at Galway. So there she's going to be focusing on edible insect farming in relationship to sort of climate change, nutritional security, and specifically researching the political and cultural systems that affect insect farming. Wendy Lu's also done a couple of TEDx talks, and I'll put links to those in the show notes. The RMM farm, ranch, as I mentioned earlier, is a converted shipping container in the heart of Denver's vibrant Westwood neighborhood, which she was saying was one of the sort of foodie areas within Denver. I haven't actually been to Denver, so I don't know what it's like. But they're one of 12 farms in the US. And the team at RMMR raise their stocks on the spent grain that they get from the local microbreweries and microdistilleries. And I think it's a great idea because they really sort of closes the loop on some of the food waste issues, and being able to use the spent grain to raise insects that you can feed. I'm presuming that before this the grain was either going to be pig food or it was just going straight into landfill. So as well as using the local brew houses and distilleries, she's also collaborated with the local chefs for snack flavours. So one of the examples of this is the Kentucky Cricket Snack, where Wendy Lu and Chef Daniel Asher from Boulder's River and Woods came up with the idea of brining crickets in local buttermilk, then dredging them through local cornmeal, salt, and 15 different herbs and spices. So this would be the Insectables range, and you can find these at the Butterfly Pavilion, which is Denver's invertebrate zoo, and they're also available in 3 Denver museums. So as well as the Butterfly Pavilion, you can get them in the Children's Museum of Denver, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. The farm products, being a foodie area where the farm is, the food products can be sampled in Linga, Comida, and El Jeff. And I didn't realise until recently when I was doing the research for this that the RMMR products are also available in Vegas. It's Sushi Co. Most recently, the guys have just successfully completed a crowdfunding project on PieShell. Again, I'll put a link to the PieShell project, and there they successfully raised over $11,000. So the project funds were needed basically because of the last 3 years since they started in the one shipping container. Their sales have grown so much that they've maxed out the production that one container can provide. As mentioned earlier, the products are sold in 3 other museums within Denver, and they're planning on expanding the range into the remaining 6 museums at the beginning of 2019, and also into a dozen more retail stores at airports and special attractions by the end of the year. So I'm a big fan of the use of insects as food, as well as animal feeds. And I'm a big fan of Wendy Lu and the guys of RMR, so I backed this project. So if you're in the US and you're especially in the Colorado area, go to one of the restaurants and sample some of the products that Wendy grows, or go to one of the when you're in one of the museums, pick up a packet of the insectables and let me know what you think. I don't think Wendy does tours of her ranch, but I'll put links to the guys' Twitter and Facebook and websites in the show notes, so you can go along, follow them on there, and I'll give a more detailed review of the products once the PieShell is finished and all the things get shipped out to the UK. But that's it for today's show. So it's just a small one, just a little bit of background on what the guys are doing, who they are, and thanks for listening. Really means a lot. So if you enjoyed it, please head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show, and leave us a review, or head on over to Facebook and find us on the Ento podcast and like our Facebook page. But that's it for today. So this is Ross saying ta-ra for now.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ento Podcast. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit theentopodcast.co.uk and on Facebook and Twitter at The Ento Podcast. We'll catch you next time.